This video is a film study focus on Lamar Jackson and what he was able to do on an extremely windy, cold, frigid day in Cincinnati as the Ravens prevailed 24-0. The defense gets a ton of attention, rightfully so. Zach Orr's group, incredibly prepared. I kind of talked about the defensive line in a film study focus that I put out on Monday afternoon, if you guys want to check it out. Lamar, I think, only threw the ball 12 times. A lot of attacking down the field. This might be the style that we're going to go to. If we can't possess the ball for long stretches, we look like a big play / home run offense that isn't going to hold on to the football for long stretches at a time. I think I've got a dozen plays queued up here to go over, most of which is from the first half, to be honest with you. It doesn't start very well for the Ravens. The first 3 possessions, really ineffective after the unfortunate interception to Zay Flowers on the 3rd drive. But in any case, this is the sack that culminates the first drive. So you've got Zay Flowers, kind of like this deeper over concept, and then later developing dig. I think that's Tez Walker from the bottom side of the screen. That appears to be where Lamar Jackson is looking later in the progression. I'm not a huge fan of the pass pro scheme that we utilize here. This happened often. In this case, Isaiah Likely ends up matched up with Myles Murphy, and Murphy played his butt off in this game. Super aggressive. I think in both games against the Ravens this year, he plays downhill, particularly off that left side of the Bengals defense, sometimes matched up with Roger Rosengarten, too often on Sunday matched up with tight ends like Isaiah Likely that just couldn't control him. In this case, Lamar probably senses or recognizes the pressure that's oncoming from the right-hand side. For whatever reason, chooses not to throw this football in here. Zay Flowers kind of cleared out this space. I don't think this DB kind of hangs out and releases him. Maybe DJ Turner's just on Walker so tight that's why Lamar Jackson, chose not to throw the football. End zone angle of the same play, just so you can check out the pass protection. I think you'll lose Murphy just for a moment off screen here to our left. Perhaps not, but in any case, one thing that I think occurred in this game, and I could be way off, is these running backs filling through or off the C gap. And what I mean is between Roger Rosengarten and the tight ends. I feel like they've got to be a little bit more aware of the fact that we've got a tight end soloed up with a starting caliber defensive end, in this case, Myles Murphy. Those guys too often were just filling through the C gap. To me, it seemed like conceptually, maybe an overgeneralization, we were either stepping in this direction with the center to help out the right side of the offensive line, or oftentimes we were stepping the tight end and then working the right tackle down while the running back was responsible for helping that C gap. How many times those 2 different iterations of pass pro occurred? I would say 6 or 8. And in my opinion, 3 times this particular look, the one that we see here right now, failed us. You see Tez Walker kind of come across the screen a little bit late, bottom right-hand side of the screen for you guys. Lamar's already decided to tuck it and try to take off running. Not a huge amount of separation, but again, the middle of the field is open. So maybe Lamar could have thrown this football, out into this space for Tez, a little bit further down the 6 o'clock position for Tez Walker to possibly run onto. Second possession, really no better. This is going to be the play action concept. Basically, it's a fake toss. I'm not a huge fan of the way Lamar gets this done. When you're opening to the linebacker that you're booting to, you've got to give a great fake. And I just don't think that we've got that here. There's no mesh between Lamar and Derrick Henry, obviously, because it's a fake. But what I mean when I say open to is Lamar is turning counterclockwise, and this is the player who we need to kind of step down and chase Derrick Henry with the ball on the left hash. We've been killing teams for the last 2 years with Derrick Henry, running into the boundary to the left hash, whether it's 21 personnel, like you see here, 11, or even 12. As it stands, when you're opening to the player that you're going to eventually boot in his direction, you've got to give a great play fake, and I just don't think that's a good enough one. Maybe the design could be better, and we could have Lamar open away from that outside linebacker. You'll get a view of what I'm talking about maybe here from the all-22 angle. Like I said, it's the second possession, and things didn't start off really well for us offensively. 21 personnel group, the flow, full flow, fullback and tailback, Derrick Henry, down into the boundary where we've really just annihilated teams the last 2 years. And so here's what I'm talking about. We see Lamar's back, and the edge defender who's up top Demetrius Knight, I believe that's who that is, who's not actually an edge defender. He's more of an inside linebacker, but they're using him there because he's so athletic. He just sees the football. It's quite easy for him to be able to veer back up to Lamar. I don't think this really has anything to do with Lamar Jackson's gravity. It's just a design element, number one, that's not great, and a play fake by Lamar that isn't, really spectacular in my opinion either. Maybe, some would say, hey, we've got Kolar open over the middle. There's two guys in that lane, one being Knight, who's there already, and then a defensive tackle who's working down the line. I just think this play is kind of doomed from the start. 2 possessions, 2 punts. This is not Lamar related, but I want to go over this play because I think it's a reaction or a response to the snap that we just saw. So this is our 3rd possession. I think it's the 2nd play of this possession, but I could be wrong. In any case, it's 21 personnel, but notice what we're doing with Ricard. So he set up into the boundary, and then he motions to the field, very similar to what we just saw, except he's not stopping here as a fullback. He's going to offset to the left. Why? It's a counter scheme. So we're trying to get him closer to the side where he can block back on maybe a defensive tackle or an edge defender, and then we can run the counter scheme down into the boundary. So what I mean by counter scheme is, let's move this path out of here for a moment. So left guard is Voorhees. He's going to pull and then kick out the edge defender, but the only thing is the edge defender stunting is to the inside. So the guy he ends up kicking out is Dax Hill, the corner. Pulling this back down, that is Ronnie Stanley's path. Basically, he's the second puller, and we've got Keaton Mitchell taking a counter step. And notice Lamar is turning in that direction. His back is to us, the side where the run play is going to go. Eventually, counter scheme. Keaton Mitchell hits it downhill, makes one safety miss. I think we end up with a 15 or a 16-yard gain. I think that play is just a response or a reaction to the last one that we saw. Of course, after that 2nd and 7 sack, by Demetrius Knight, we had a 3rd down that ended up leading to our punt. I just wanted to show kind of the progression of maybe what Todd Monken was thinking with a particular play call. This is the same play from the end zone angle. Again, ball's on the right hash. Ricard has motioned from the boundary, and then he's set up in what I call line, which means offset from the midline. So he's going to step away from the play, kind of using his gravity, if you will, to hold second-level defenders. And usually you'd be blocking or kicking out this edge defender. It's actually not Miles Murphy in this case. But he kind of stunts to the inside, and so Kolar's just going to take him down. So Kolar's just going to work him in this direction. That's just called, take him down, move him where he wants to go. And then Voorhees on the kick is going to just kick out the next defender, which happens to be Dax Hill. Notice Lamar Jackson is opening to our left on the screen, his back to the defender to the sideline, which again is Dax Hill. Doesn't necessarily matter because we're not booting there, but sometimes it's good to just talk about or try to illustrate the direction that a quarterback opens, particularly when they're under center. Again, Ricard is not a part of this play. He's stepping away from the action because it's a counter scheme. So the only thing that I can suspect is that we're trying to hold this field side inside linebacker long enough that he can't get there because we're leaving him totally unblocked. Hopefully the way that I explain that makes sense. So you've got Voorhees kicking out the corner. Stanley is going to wrap and then go get up to the boundary side inside linebacker. We're not blocking this guy right here. I think he's the guy that's kind of held by Ricard's step downhill right now. Even though 49 sees the pullers and puts his hand up in the air, his left hand I'm talking about, he doesn't end up going until it's too late, and then Mitchell can kind of bounce things outside underneath of the kick-out block from Voorhees and behind the wrap, the second puller by Ronnie Stanley. Unfortunately, we know how the third possession ends. It's this play right here. This is a throw that Lamar Jackson he puts it right into Zay Flowers' hands or his gut, whatever Zay is trying to catch it with. So the ball is on the right hash. It's a 2nd and 8. I think it's after a 2-yard run from Keaton Mitchell. So you've got this kind of later developing in-breaking route by Tylan Wallace. And then Zay Flowers is going to get absolutely, redirected by the boundary side inside linebacker. I think it's a 4-3 structure here by the Bengals. So he's going to collision Zay right there, knock him off his route, if you will, expand him a little bit. There's really only two routes that are happening down the field. Number one, it's this route where Zay kind of turns it into a whip or China in, and then Tylan Wallace a little bit later cutting over the second level of the defense as well. We've got some time for Lamar, even though Voorhees, the left guard, is beat quite badly. I will give you the end zone angle of that one. It seems to me the dynamic that's been happening here lately is if Linderbaum steps to the right to help out Falele, then we get beat here. And if Linderbaum steps to the left to help out Voorhees, then we get beat here. It's not 100%. It's not every time. But watching the pass pro over the course of the entirety of the season, that's kind of an oversimplification that you can see manifest on film each and every week. Same play from the end zone angle again. It's a 2nd and 8 with the ball on the right hash. Voorhees matched up with the defensive tackle, so two routes that are down the field. Andrews is kind of just shooting out into the boundary side flats. And Andrews' route is going to hold 42, or force, I should say, 42 to expand. That's the guy who collisions Zay Flowers. Pretty clean ability for us to step through. One thing to note, I should say, is that, again, we've got a running back moving through. I wonder if we need to provide more help to the guards, but I'm not sure exactly how we could do that. In any case, this is the guy who ends up getting the interception. Really no good reason for that. Lamar, in my opinion, initially checked the other guy with his helmet. Initially, I think he checked here to see what, I believe that's Geno Stone is doing, and then he comes back and is now looking at battle number 27, who I have spot shadowed in blue. Again, Linderbaum is stepping to Falele, kind of trying to help him out. Lamar puts this ball right on the money for Zay Flowers. That thing should obviously be caught, 100 times out of 100. Even though Voorhees is beat, at least he does hold, doesn't get called for it, however, and gives Lamar an opportunity to get this ball off right into Zay's hands. 3 possessions, 28 yards on 10 plays, and 0 points. Really unfortunate at the time because, we had an opportunity to take a 7-0 lead, number one. Number two, that looked like the kind of drive where if we get Keaton Mitchell just a little bit of space, he's going to be gone. I wouldn't say that this was an A-level game from Todd Monken in terms of play calling standpoint, but I do like some of the answers that he responded with as the game progressed. So this is a 21 personnel group. Isaiah likely going to motion down, and initially he's going to engage or chip, I should say, Miles Murphy. It's an under center play action concept from 21 personnel. So you can see likely initially engaging Murphy. Lamar executing the play fake to the field to Derrick Henry. And then later developing, you have Ricard kind of taking over Murphy, if you will, to ensure that we've got the opportunity, to give Lamar the opportunity, I should say, to have time to throw the football. This is what I was talking about earlier, the two different styles or schemes. Again, oversimplifications to an extent, but we either seem to be sliding everyone and then having a tight end and or running back working on Murphy, the defensive end, to our right or the Bengals left, or we seem to be using one other pass protection in particular. I think Lamar's got this, to be honest with you. This is Tez Walker moving across an over concept. He emanated from the bottom side of our screen here. And I think as Lamar sets up, we've got the opportunity to throw him this football since Zay Flowers' route is occupying the field side corner who's spot shadowed there in yellow. For whatever reason, Lamar chooses not to throw it. It just doesn't seem like to me this inside linebacker or second-level defender who has turned his back off the play fake. We're talking about 49 here. He'll step forward with the run action and play fake from Lamar to Derrick Henry. And then you see he turns his back. It's called a wrong read. Means you got the wrong read. You bet on play action. Fine. Turn your back and go find work. I just don't feel like this guy is going to be able to have anything to do with this route to Tez Walker. I think we should throw it about where the end of that arrow is and let Walker run onto it. The free safety is trying to tell the corner to fall off, meaning Geno Stone is trying to tell this corner to fall off on the route by Tez Walker so that Geno Stone, can take over the route from, I believe that's Zay Flowers. In any case, Lamar has to move out of the pocket because Miles Murphy still disrupted the play, even though we allocated 2 guys for him. Here's Ricard battling him. I'll give you the end zone angle so you can kind of confirm it for yourself. Lamar takes off, and we turn it into, I think, a 14-yard gain. one of those moments where it's kind of like fan bases of other teams and quarterbacks, especially the ones who are not mobile, they watch stuff like this happen and they're jealous. It's like, you don't have one of these. But in any case, I like the concept. Under center play action, trying to allocate 2 guys for Myles Murphy. He was still able to get a pressure on the play. I should say primarily because, Lamar chose not to throw the football there to Walker when I think it's there and it's available. So the ensuing snap, this is a play that I've drawn up probably 100 times in the last 5 or 6 years. It's an RPO with a snag flat concept. So the motion by Likely, he's going to run out into the flats. And then this is Hopkins, basically running the snag concept. The read for Lamar post-snap ends up being this guy right here. And Lamar's done this 100, 200, 300, 400 times if you count practice situations. So what I really like about it is the counter step by Derrick Henry. And then moving off to the top side of our screen or the left-hand side of the Ravens offense. That, along with the 2 pulling linemen, Rosengarten and Falele, really gives this second-level defender a lot to worry about. Since they're in their base personnel, they being the Bengals, they've responded to 13 personnel, by the way. We're in 13. So we got 3 tight ends on the field up here, Kolar, Andrews, and Isaiah Likely. It puts tremendous pressure on the the field side, outside linebacker, 42. Once again, I think that's Knight. So he expands, trying to hold the window. He's got to know that, I say he's got to know. We don't run this as often as we used to. We used to run this snag flat concept a ton. Lamar actually kind of gives you a little bit of a no look and almost really leads Hopkins out into open space. Hopkins is trying to, really sit this down. Lamar kind of leads him more, probably because Lamar sees the space that Hopkins could run onto. We used to run this a ton with Hollywood Brown, Rashad Bateman, all kinds of guys. It seems to me like Hopkins was unsure of his long speed, so he chose to kind of cut it away from DJ Turner down here and, directly into the safety Jordan Battle. He really probably didn't have a great option here. He wasn't going to outrun those guys for a touchdown, but as it stands, it ends up being a 32-yard gain. I don't know about you. I'd love to see more of that, the RPO stuff, with maybe even some variations on just the snag flat concept. So still in the 4th possession, so 3rd and 7. I talked about this read a little bit on the vault. I went on with Bobby and Sarah earlier Tuesday. So it's a 3rd down, and Cincinnati's in a mug look. Someone has got to handle the running back. So basically, if the running back releases on this path, normally it'd be the edge defender down here. And if the running back releases in the opposite path, it'd be the edge defender or safety to the outside, whoever's not assigned to guard someone man-to-man. It seems like Lamar is aware of that. Number one, it's basically a peel rule. So if the running back, let's say you're this guy right here, Myles Murphy, if the running back goes away from you, you blitz. Attack the quarterback, contain rush. If the running back steps to you, you take him, match him, and this guy edge rushes. It's a very simple concept. It's a drill that you can do like day 1 or day 2 of practice, no matter what age group you're coaching. We do hit the touchdown here. So great. And I think Rasheen Ali, it's a really nice fake. Lamar probably, communicated that to him. So, I'm glad for the way that this worked out. I will say to you that for years, I have wanted to see us throw against these stick split zero looks this route right here. There is no one in the middle of the field. We've missed it before. The first time that I can kind of remember it is Sammy Watkins, first quarter against the Miami Dolphins, that Thursday night football game in 2021. This is Tez Walker. The way that it worked out, not complaining about it all, but I would like to see us attack down the field with this route, basically let our speed guys run onto some space. Blown coverage, man, running back into the boundary can't happen. But happened to us last week against the Steelers, right, in the 3rd quarter. Basically ends up being the difference between an opportunity to win the game and a disappointing division loss. We really kind of get things going from a Lamar standpoint late into the 2nd quarter. On a cold, windy day, there definitely seemed to be confidence in Monken, or from Todd Monken, I should say, in Lamar to be able to execute some of these downfield throwing concepts. So almost spread-ish type of attack. We're in 11 personnel, and I would call this dash. This seems to be a 2nd quarter play for us. I don't really remember us running this early in games, nor do I remember us running it in the second half. So dash usually is indicated by the tight end, in this case Kolar, attacking the edge defender. Once again, that's Myles Murphy. And then you've got Tylan Wallace, kind of this bender out route, if you will, corner route. and then a deeper out by Zay Flowers. Lamar's going to loft that ball, obviously, over the top of the second level defender. This is a Tampa 2. So I think you've got two high safety structure, and I think you've got a flat corner here. This, to me, looks like a Mike linebacker running, in between the field. That's the guy who really makes a Tampa 2 be a Tampa 3, a 3 deep coverage that's just hidden inside of the name or the vernacular Tampa 2. So Lamar is threatening to the edge, and you've got a late route by the running back into the flats, and it really puts this guy, DJ Turner, in conflict, right? You've got Zay on this kind of deeper out concept to allow him to catch the football and get out of bounds, and then Rasheen Ali running into the flat, so you're high-lowing this defender. Most people these days call it dash. The old run and shoot used to have different names for it, semi-roll, sprint out type stuff. In any case, it's a second quarter play in most of the iterations where I feel like we've seen it in 2025. Didn't see this a ton from us in 2024. Lamar's obviously got oncoming defenders, 2 of them, in fact. Floats it over the top of the defenders. Maybe there's too much air put on this. I don't know. It ends up working out. From the end zone angle, it's kind of tough to say, like, when should we throw this football? Where should we throw it? Is Lamar actually trying to throw it down here to the sideline? I really don't think so, to be honest with you. And if you guys have listened to my content at all, not just this video, I'm not one to just go out of my way to apologize and defend Lamar Jackson. I'll give you the end zone angle. I feel like Lamar's trying to throw it back over that wrong shoulder almost intentionally. In any case, the dash concept, like I said, we are blocking or pinning down on that defensive end. In this case, it's Kolar who motioned off screen, and then he's going to walk back down on the defensive end. In addition, something to note about like dash or even those old school run and shoot concepts. Normally, if you have, like in this case, the offensive line's working to their left. They're working away from where Lamar Jackson is going. But oftentimes on these types of concepts, if you were going to step the tackle to the defensive end, talking about Miles Murphy, sometimes you would like intentionally overset it. So you would intentionally flatten this out or overset it, I should say, such that you elicit or bait an inside move because you know where Lamar Jackson, the quarterback, is going. That's not the way that we're running it. That's not the way that most teams run it, to be honest with you. Normally you see this pin down by the tight end and then out in the flats by the running back. Like I said, in this case, it's Rasheen Ali. So Lamar's trying to throw it over the top of this defender. This is the high-low. Ali and then Flowers. Maybe Lamar should throw it more towards the sideline over the top of that corner. I'm not sure how they read it or what they teach it, obviously. But to me, it looks like the corner's reaction because of his width. You've got, I'm talking about the corner that's off screen right now for us. The off screen for us right now is DJ Turner, somewhere over here. I feel like Lamar is intentionally throwing this football to keep it away from him. Now you guys see him at this point. Again, you can think if you want that I'm just trying to defend Lamar Jackson overly. I'm just not sure that he's going to be able to get enough pace on that ball to throw it in a way that DJ Turner can't defend it if he intentionally puts it over here near the sideline. It worked out. Unfortunately, Zay Flowers took a huge hit, right? I think it's a great throw and a great play. It's a concept that we use a ton, typically when the ball is on the left hash. Still in the 5th possession, like I said, in the second quarter, and it's another scramble. So kind of a flood concept. And the way that this works for me, I do wonder if, Lamar should throw the football here. I'm not sure who that is. It might be Tylan Wallace. Tylan Wallace is certainly a guy that, we can trust. That's not Wallace. My apologies. That's actually Wester. But if this is Hopkins or maybe Andrews on this route here, I feel like Lamar is probably throwing this football. We've got what we want in terms of man here. Lamar is definitely looking to that side. There's no other read really for him over there at all. We're running the running back across Lamar's face. And so what that does is it really forces these inside linebackers to kind of part the Red Sea. So this guy, the field side inside linebacker, matches up with Rasheen Ali's route. And then the boundary side inside linebacker matches up with Mark Andrews, who came from the other side of the field. We're talking about Andrews being matched up by this guy, and then Ali being matched up by that guy. And that's what really kind of opens the gate, if you will, for Lamar Jackson to scramble once he decides not to throw it here. I mean, we're certainly tightly covered as well, but when I say Hopkins or Andrews, I mean guys that Lamar would possibly trust to go make those catches, but it's late second quarter, and we just need yards, and there you go. This is the element that, again, fan bases, fans of other teams, particularly like, the Lions and the Seahawks, even though Sam Darnold has scrambled some this year in a somewhat surprising fashion, they'll sometimes ask me, they'll be like, what's it like to have a quarterback who is that athletic and that quick? It's borderline unfair in situations like this. Inside of 1 minute left in the second quarter, I believe, about 49, 50 seconds, something like that. This one's going to be incomplete to Andrews. Of course, this one could be actually intercepted. So it's a sail concept. This is the route that'll be thrown to Andrews. Some people call this escort. I call it a one-man screen. Basically, likely the same motion that we saw a couple of times earlier, going out in the flats and just basically leading for Rasheen Ali to possibly catch it, and then likely would go be a lead blocker. We get real pressure from the right side, surprise, surprise, because we're not protecting those guys at all in this particular concept. It seems to me quite obvious that when we afforded extra protection to those guys, Rosengarten and Falele, we didn't have as much trouble, particularly with Myles Murphy. When we left them on their own, we got some more disruption. And so, here it comes. Lamar has to fade to his left. I think he just kind of hangs this one out there. I'll give you the end zone angle of what I'm talking about. I think he just kind of hangs this out there and kind of curls that way with his body, almost kind of sideways, as opposed to with the momentum, in the direction that he wants to throw. And you can actually see his body kind of step over, and it brings DJ Turner into play. He's trying to layer the throw over top of the second level of the defense. We hit Turner basically, in the face mask, I think. Very fortunate that it's not intercepted. Probably Lamar's worst throw on the day, but even having said that, I think the ball actually skims off of Mark Andrews' fingers. It's still just a little bit too high for my liking. Huge break for multiple reasons. We're up 7-0 here late in the second quarter, and the Bengals get the ball to open the third quarter. So were they to get an interception there, could totally flip the dynamic of how things turned out. End zone angle of the same play. So the pressure that I'm talking about is going to be, off the right side. It's both of those two defenders there, because we're clearing out the tight end, likely, to lead the way for Rasheen Ali, and Andrews is the guy running the route. So when we afford them less protection, less help, you get what you get there, which is Murphy kind of bull rushing and walking Rosengarten back. And then in addition to that, the B-gap rusher, working past Falele to kind of try to cut the corner. In any case, Lamar's trying to layer the throw to Andrews here over the second level of the defense. And you can see how this works out. It's just off the fingertips of Mark Andrews, and then hits Turner pretty much right in the face mask. We're very fortunate to A, not have a turnover occur there, and B, that we're able to get a touchdown on this drive and actually put this into a 2-score lead. So very next snap is an over route, patented over route, in fact, by Mark Andrews against man. So once again, you're getting likely in the same motion. Showed it 4 or 5 times in this half, left to right, sometimes with the ball on the left hash, sometimes with the ball on the right hash. But in any case, Lamar kind of moving around in the pocket a little bit to his right, or the top side of our screen to the bottom. And what's happened here is Hopkins has cleared out all of this space with his route. So Hopkins is the X receiver into the boundary, going to run an in cut. It's man. So what that does is opens up all of this space for Andrews to access. We've been basically running this concept, with all tight ends, but in particular Mark Andrews against man for, about a half a decade at this point. And he wins these. It's almost kind of like, who hasn't, as a strong safety in the AFC North, been beat by that route from Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson. We're inside of, I think, 40 seconds left in the half at the time that this ball was caught. So once again, likely working left to right from a Ravens perspective. And we know that it's man, so that's part of the reason why we're using that motion, obviously. Pretty good job of Falele and Rosengarten picking up this stunt, but it's very poorly run, in my opinion. Doesn't have the same upfield rush by this defensive tackle, nor the same delayed path from Murphy that they used in the first matchup against us. It's kind of like they didn't run those stunts with the same technical perfection at times, in my opinion. We still handled it better, don't get me wrong. So our guys, certainly deserve credit. Also, another factor to talk about here is that the center, Linderbaum, stepped to us as a right guard. So it helps that we have 3 over 2 now as opposed to a 2-on-2. In any case, you can see the space that Andrews is accessing because Hopkins' route cleared out all of that space into the boundary, the left-hand side for Lamar, and I think we pick up 14 yards. Finally, the touchdown to Zay Flowers that'll pretty much culminate what I'm going to talk about here. It's 30 yards, as is played about as poorly by the boundary safety, which I think is Geno Stone, as you could imagine. I just don't know what he's looking at all. Andrews is first to the flats immediately here. And Zay is kind of running an out and up. You're really getting, I think, another version of a Tampa 2 where Geno Stone is getting depth. And at some point, he'll actually avert his eyes to this route by DeAndre Hopkins. I don't necessarily think it's because Lamar looked there. Having said that, Lamar is looking there for a moment while taking his drop. We're talking about Lamar's helmet here. I'll rewind it. And go slow-mo for a moment. He's definitely looking that side to Hopkins. I just don't understand what Geno Stone is doing, being as it's a Tampa 2. So you've got half-field defenders here, a Mike linebacker running. They call it running the pipe between the hashes. And that's really not Geno Stone's responsibility. And it's so basically just really slow reacting to this route by Zay. Again, it's a Tampa 2, so he's existing over top of the corner coverage and then outside of the safety. And again, in this case, it's Geno Stone. Lamar throws a really good ball, if you ask me, such that Stone is unable to make a play on it completely. I also feel like the hesitation that Stone had in turning and going at this point when you got such an obvious vertical up the left sideline is pretty notable for me. From the end zone angle, again, this is a 30-yard touchdown to Flowers that puts us up 14-0 late in the second quarter. So we chip the defensive end with Likely. I think we got a loss here. Inside linebacker 49. I can't exactly remember who that is, but he's getting around Filele into the B gap. So we have A gap help here in the form of Rasheen Ali. The nose tackle is stunted away from Linderbaum, and we're still not able to win that battle. Just agility is obviously at a deficit there. So at the point in time that I've paused it here, you've got Hopkins working across right to left, kind of that little shallow dig route. And the inside linebacker, turning his back and running with any potential vertical. There is really no vertical there. Zay Flowers is off screen to our left, tucked up against the left sideline. You guys can't see it because of the frame that I've got, but Geno Stone is actually looking there right now. He's looking across the field to the other side. You've got a vertical to your side and a Tampa 2 that exists outside of you. That's your job to defend it. It would be potentially, this inside linebacker's job to take over that route from Hopkins, but generally the Mike linebacker in a Tampa 2 is looking to defend any vertical that exists in between the hashes. You can see the inside linebacker 44 check up. I think Stone really couldn't have played this any worse. Excellent ball, by Lamar, in my opinion. One of the situations when we're able to give him time, when we're able to give him a pocket and attack down the field, you can see what we can get done. I think that's why so many of us, myself included, have been incredibly frustrated with 2005. It's like, why can't anyone else identify that if we put an elite offensive line unit in front of Lamar Jackson, he's going to be virtually unstoppable? We'll actually do one more play here. This is from into the third quarter. It's a 3rd and 8. Unfortunately, it's an incomplete pass to Zay Flowers. I'll be honest with you, when I first saw this ball thrown, I thought it was going to be high, and it was not. Lamar had the right pace and the right trajectory on it. Initially, Lamar's going to be looking down here to Mark Andrews as the backside X receiver. And it's unfortunate because, first of all, Flowers is open. Lamar puts the ball in his hands. Maybe it's on the edge of his fingers or the edge of his hands. But it's a good throw nonetheless, if you ask me. But in addition to that, really cool design, man. You've got kind of like this China in or whip route by Hopkins, and it frees up Tez Walker. If Lamar had been reading up here initially, my guess is he probably throws this ball to Tez Walker over the middle, and we're talking about an easy touchdown to put us up 20-0. As it stands, Lamar is fading a little bit to his right. I think he puts this ball in a great spot. Maybe you could say this ball is 3 to 4 inches higher than you would want it in a perfect scenario. I think it's a great ball from Lamar. Gives Zay Flowers an opportunity to go make the catch. I like the design, man. Hopkins, going to curl to the outside and then delayed bring his route back in. And watch how that opens up or helps open up Walker with what essentially acts as a pick. Lamar moved off of Mark Andrews quickly as the read to the bottom side because he noticed the tight coverage. And then works up to Flowers. Really unfortunate, like I said, it gives us a 21-0 lead if we're able to execute this. For all intents and purposes, the game will be over at that point. I think Lamar finished 8 of 12 passing, obviously, just in the film study video that I showed you here. 2 other opportunities for Zay Flowers to catch the football. Could have very easily been 10 of 12 with 3 touchdowns. On the other hand, DJ Turner dropped an interception that hit him in the face mask, so evaluate it as you wish. We went up there and got the job done with an excellent defensive preparation and performance. Have to credit Zach Orr and those guys for being a rock on the other side of the ball. I think Lamar, even though he was sacked multiple times, I think 3 in this game, perhaps 4, which is too many, was sharp throwing the football, particularly down the field on a day that was windy, very cold, and I thought affected Joe Burrow more than it did Lamar Jackson. We're now 7-7 at this point, 1 game behind the Pittsburgh Steelers, who we'll face again in the final regular season game. Really interesting dynamic for me that happens coming up soon. First, we get the New England Patriots. A win over them would obviously help the Buffalo Bills, something we do not want to do. Nonetheless, we need a win there. The Week 17 game perhaps will not matter against the Packers, pending the results this week between the Steelers and the Lions, who could help us. It's such an interesting dynamic for me because of the amount of film that I watch of both of those teams, Ravens and the Lions, and then it totally flips the dynamic the ensuing week, Week 17. We go to Green Bay. The Lions may need help in order to make the playoffs. They're sitting at 8-6 right now. Games against the Steelers, the Vikings, to conclude the regular season. So this was a fun one for me to try to produce. Normally my quarterback film studies are out on Thursday, but being as Lamar only had 12 total attempts, this was quite easy for me to produce. I think I showed you 8 of his throws in this game, sharp down the field, decisive in my opinion, difficult throws, at least 2 of them, in particular the 26-yard completion to Zay Flowers that started our second touchdown drive. The dash concept, as I call it. In any case, if you guys enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section, number 1. And finally, if you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this film study look at Lamar Jackson, generally focusing on his throws from the 24-0 win over the Bengals, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.